Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. It is the 30th of November, just back from our Thanksgiving break to see the kids. Saw them all, maybe a couple hundred miles south of us here. And we returned to find winter has arrived to this part of Maine. And just coming out to let the dogs out and see that even out here, about 100 yards from the hives, bees were flying yesterday to some extent. It got up into the 40s yesterday. Even though the hives are 100 yards in that direction, there's plenty of flying. One thing is for sure, this year, the bees are going into the winter, at least my bees are going into the winter with more bees, bigger clusters than I've seen in several years. Now, some of these are bees that are being carted out, as is a drone. The number of bees in the snow on the first snowfall this year makes me wonder, are a lot of bees summer bees, the leftover summer bees, just sort of coming to the end of their normal life expectancy? Anyway, I'm certainly glad I got all the wrapping done. For anyone who worries about those nukes are empty. But these colonies are all wrapped up for winter. Lots of bees on the snow down out here. Let's come in a bit. Chilly. Styrofoam hives didn't need any preparation bar entrance reducers. Even some bees coming out now, dying in the snow. That worker bee looks big enough that it was a winter bee, not a summer bee. Once they landed in the snow, they pretty much had it this time of year. Unless they happen to be able to fly into something dark and the sun can warm them up. But all the hives are prepared, and nukes have been placed higher up off the ground. Biggest thing you can do to help the nuke is, number one, lift them up off the ground for the winter, but make sure there's no draft underneath them. The other thing that you can do is do what I've done here. Sit the nuke on top of another large hive. Directly underneath this hive is just a feeding rim, and these the heat will warm up the bottom board of these hives and make the air just that little bit warmer inside the nukes. Better still, and had I planned this out a bit better, because I have them, I've got double screen boards where you take the bottoms off the nukes and put them on a double screen board, so that there's a double screen between the bottom of the nuke and the top of the big colony below, where the big colony below has a bigger cluster and a higher amount of heat generated, therefore, and that warm air can pass up into those nukes. However, that's not how these are set up. I left it too late, and also I discovered one thing which is a real pain in the neck for doing it late in the season, is that all of these nukes are different. The bottoms of these nukes are screwed on in all sorts of different ways with all sorts of different screws, and it was taking me far too long to try and take the bottoms of these nukes off so I could put them on a double screen board. So I just placed them straight on top of the hive below. The hive below still has the entrance. It's still got the upper entrance there, but above them, relatively thin bottom of the nuke, the heat will penetrate there and keep those nukes just that little bit warmer. Then a bit of insulation over the top of the nukes. I've got insulation under these lids as well, and so the tops of these nukes are well insulated, actually pretty well, about an inch and a quarter, inch and a half of insulation up there. So there will be no condensation on the roof of the nukes, but there may be condensation on the ends of the nukes, the end walls, where the entrance is in the back of the nuke. That's fine. A bit of condensation in the hive actually provides a water source for the bees, called a condensing hive. So being sure that the top of the hive is well insulated, that way you don't get dripping of condensation down on the colony below. Temperatures are still only about 32 degrees here right now. It was down in the 20s last night, and it's going to get steadily colder over the next 10 days, according to the weather forecast. We may yet get another storm in a week's time. But you can see lots of dead bees on the snow. And of course, as I always say every year, remember, these colonies go into the winter with roughly twice the number of bees that they're going to come out of the winter with. And so what's going to happen is that they are going to lose, the nukes might lose 5,000 to 10,000 bees. The big colonies might lose 20,000 bees over the course of the next 5 months. Now, by midwinter, they're starting to replace some of those bees, but that means roughly 100 dead bees a day in each of these colonies. And it doesn't take long for those 100 dead bees a day to scatter out. Now, it looks like yesterday the majority of the 100 bees a day that were coming out to die came out and died on the snow. But when it gets colder and the temperatures are only, say, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, well, then those bees die and drop to the bottom of the hive, and that's where you get that accumulation of dead bees in the hive. Now I've got to do something about this. Might have to come out with another stick to try and prop up this electric fence post broke, so I'm gonna have to prop it up somehow. Well, you see it's shorting out anyway. The snow is up to the bottom wire. Anyhow, good to see the pond is starting to finally fill up again. For the last 3 months, it's been steadily going down and down and down. And actually, I saw something this year which I hadn't seen before. About 2 weeks ago, I was out here. I was looking over on that far bank, and there was an enormous little rafts of dead bees on the water that had come out and presumably gone to get some water and then chilled and got paralyzed in the cold water of the pond. If I remember, I will take the photograph I've got in my the memory of the camera and post that on. But rafts of hundreds, maybe thousands of dead bees. Now, in a recent talk that I attended, well, a few months ago, by Tom Seeley, Professor Tom Seeley, you're saying that the bees that forage for water are kind of programmed that way. They're bees that do water collecting all their lives. And so in that case, one would not expect your water foragers to make a major contribution to the overwintering of the bees in the winter here. So I wonder if it's just you expect to lose all your water carrier bees late in the fall anyway, and this is how we lose most of them, by drowning in the local ponds, or chilling and drowning. So anyway, these bees are in good shape, all ready for winter. It was only 2 days before Thanksgiving that I actually got the last of my hives wrapped in my last video, and I'd say just in time. Now, it's never really a problem when right now we're only getting temperatures in the 20s at night and 30s in the daytime. These bees would have been perfectly okay without insulation right now. It certainly makes me feel better, makes most beekeepers feel better to know their hives are wrapped up nicely, and that means they're going to use a lot less honey because of the insulation. You're not really saving their lives for weather conditions like this, although to us it's cold. To the bees, they can cope with this no problem. What I wrap for to protect the bees' lives is the very rapid changes in temperature. When you get a 50-60 degree day and they're flying around in January, then it drops to 5 degrees at night. That's 5 degrees Fahrenheit, say 20 below centigrade. That is what kills colonies during the winter time. A lot of folks will say, no, the bees will cope with that fine. Yes, most colonies will. But if it happens under certain circumstances, you will lose colonies. And I have had in this yard, where I once had something like 40 colonies in the wintertime, all but 3 died in the space of a few days, when we had several times where that happened. And each time the cluster broke apart, the bees were spread around the hive, and then it dropped in temperature very rapidly, ended up with little golf ball and tennis ball sized clusters all over the hive, none of which were big enough to cope with those low temperatures of, say, 5 degrees, and they all perish, with it leaving around the center of the colony a smaller and smaller and smaller cluster, which ultimately was too small to cope with those cold temperatures as well. And so that's why I wrap my hives up, to make sure that they survive those occasions. Now, for 5 years before that, I hadn't been wrapping my hives, and they were perfectly fine. Well, no, 4 years before that, they were fine. On the 5th year, that's when I lost them. And you can lose all of your colonies in the space of a week, just like I almost did. So since then, I've been wrapping my hives, and I've had much better success. And I know that I'm not vulnerable to that particular problem. Now, why are my bees doing so well so far this year? Well, we had a late honey flow. I'm sure that helped. But also, this is my first season where I've tried Viroxan. And I put Viroxan in the hives in August, as soon as it arrived for me. And as it happened, I just finished my Formic Pro treatments. And in almost all my yards, the Formic Pro worked very well. I had to do a second Formic Pro treatment in this yard in order to get the mite levels down enough. Then I put the Viroxan in, and it's kept them down. So I'm wondering if that is one of the main reasons. I would say that between the two, a very good fall honey flow and that Viroxan treatment, my hives look in the best situation that they've looked prior to winter for many years. So we'll know later in the winter, early in the spring, if that indeed was the outcome, because there's no way of knowing at this point how it's going to go. A lot can happen, but I have bigger clusters, and almost all of my hives, bar the nukes, I'd say 95% of my hives are now double deeps. So I have particularly large clusters. I actually put deep supers on a lot of my singles, because supers full of honey on my singles, because I had so many bees in them. I thought, well, what the heck, I've got more honey than I really need. So I gave them a deep super full of honey. And so a lot of the colonies, say probably about a dozen that I would have overwintered as singles, I'm overwintering as doubles. So with luck, they will actually expand just that little bit faster in the spring to help me make my nukes. The things that are keeping me busy now is teaching. So with my friend Amy, we are doing another workshop for beginners starting on Monday the 2nd of December. So it's basically a introduction to beekeeping, and Amy and I are giving a couple of videos, which are pre-recorded videos that will air on Monday and Tuesday of next week, December 2nd and 3rd. And it will cover all the real basics of beekeeping. So if you have friends that are thinking of keeping bees and aren't in a place where they can take a class, well, this would be a good introduction to them. And so I'll put the link in the comments below, and they could join us for that. It's only $10, and see if beekeeping is really for them. So that's pre-recorded videos on the Monday and the Tuesday, and on the Wednesday and the Friday, Amy and I will go live on our group in order to field questions all about it. And we usually have 200-300 people join us. I think we're going to have between 300 and 400 people in this workshop. And it usually is first of all, a lot of fun doing it because there's a lot of enthusiastic people. And we just like to talk about our experience with beekeeping, give them the basics of this is what you'd need to know. And if they need further help, we're there to help later on as well, because we can do some much more detailed teaching of beekeeping, either online or in person here. Anyway, it's a beautiful day today. I see my snowplow guy didn't come. The snow wasn't deep enough for the to deal with, have to have the snow, so everything's turning to ice at the moment, but with a little bit of luck, most of that will melt this afternoon. I'll be able to get the shovel out and just clear enough of it to make sure it does. Anyway, in a few minutes, Newcastle United are going to be on TV, so I'm going to quickly edit this video, get it posted, and go on and cheer on my team. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.